Hello. This is intended for friends, family, and loved ones. In case anything ever happens to me, I don't want my stories and memories to die with me. So, anyone who thinks, oh man, I didn't know him that well, or I wish I knew this, or I wish I knew that, or anybody like my son had questions, that is the purpose of this video. So, this is not for you. Trust me, you have no interest in this. You can click away. My name is Paul Daniel Charman. I was born on June 16th, 1983, in Kitchener, Ontario, Canada. Um, Both my parents met at Bible college. Uh, I wouldn't exist if my father hadn't had gotten confused after high school and joined a cult in South America. And after not wanting to go to college, yada yada yada, gave up all of his possessions except for his guitar. He loved his guitar. One time he was hitchhiking in South America, held at gunpoint, and refused to give up his guitar. He woulda, coulda, shoulda died right there and then, and I wouldn't exist, but he didn't. Then when he had nothing else and was smart enough to leave this religious cult before it was too late, his parents said, "Look, the only thing we can do to help is if you go to this Bible college." So he agreed, and that's where he met my mother. Um, he ended up becoming a pastor. They lived in Canada. I had two older brothers. They were married in the mid 70s, I believe 74 or 75, I want to say. I remember they had their wedding picture on the wall when I was growing up, and it had the date on it. And I want to say 74 or 75, one of the two. But they had their first child, my oldest brother, in 1977. And 2 years later, they had their second child, another boy, in 1979. And before I was born in 83, my mother had two miscarriages, I believe. I always imagined God's plan that those miscarriages were girls, but I was meant to be me. My poor parents had three boys, and none of us made life very easy for them, especially in our teenage years. I don't think my parents consider any of us very much of a success. We're all. I'm doing these because of my milestone age that I'm reaching this year. But my brother's being older than me. I mean, we're all about to be in our 40s, and my oldest brother's a cook. My middle brother is an employee. Most of his life, he was in and out of jail, but now he's just working at Home Depot, I think. And I at least am a manager of a movie theater. So that's something, although neither of them ever told me that they were proud of me or good job when I got all these promotions. Three promotions in 11 months. Anywho, that's neither here or there. I'm skipping ahead. This is just going to cover my 0 through 9 years to the best of my ability. Born June 15th, 1983, in Kitchener, Ontario, Canada, a little city just outside of Toronto. When I was 6 weeks old, my parents moved to Kansas. The family moved to Kansas. So people used to always tease me, "You're not really Canadian. You only lived there for 6 weeks." Canada's always where my heart will be. I'm 100% Canadian. I pledge Canadian. I'm Canadian. If I never had my son, I'd be living in Canada right now. Hopefully, when my son's 18, I can talk him into moving up there. If not, if he ever moves far away from me, I'm moving back to Canada. I want to die in Canada. I want to retire in Canada. I want to go back home to Canada. It's like the scene in Kevin Costner in Robin Hood when he finally makes it home after all those years in jail. First thing he does when he gets off the boat is kiss the sand. That's, I tell you, what I wouldn't give to God. Last time I was in Canada was when I was 13-ish. We'll cover that later. Um, So we moved to Kansas. I have no memory of Kansas. Not that there's anything to remember from Kansas. We didn't live there very long. I remember my dad worked at a bookstore, but I think that might have been California. From Kansas, I don't, know the dates exact. Well, I'm kind of, because I remember I started. Well, I went. It was when I was 4, 3. So we lived in California through second grade. So I was probably still pretty young in Kansas, and we probably moved to California before I went to school. I'm guessing I did kindergarten, first, and second grade in California. I do have memories of California. We lived in Rancho Cucamonga. I used to tell people that, and people who aren't from California thought I was making that up. No, that's a real place. Rancho Cucamonga. I have a few, memories here and there of California. I remember how windy it was sometimes. I have some school memories. I have a memory of my favorite color being green. Now it's red, and my second favorite color is Tron blue. Um, I do remember where we lived in California. We had these friends, and they were these girls. And one time they got their hands on a Debbie Gibson cardboard, like life-size cardboard cutout of Debbie Gibson. And I loved Debbie Gibson, had a huge crush on her. That's one of the first crushes I remember. My first, I guess Debbie Gibson would have been the very first, because that would have been before Power Rangers and before Little Mermaid, because that would have been once we got it. Well, no, okay. My first crush was Ariel from The Little Mermaid. My first real life person, legitimate crush was Kimberly, the Pink Ranger from the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I met her. Anyway, but Debbie Gibson, I remember being the first time, even at that very young age, of being like, she's pretty. So I wanted this cardboard cutout of Debbie Gibson. And they said they would give it to me if I streaked around the neighborhood. So I did. So again, how old was I? Let's see. 10, 9, 8. Let's say I was 7. 7 years old, streaking in my neighborhood for a Debbie Gibson cardboard cutout, which I got. Life-size Debbie Gibson cardboard cutout. And it was like, she was like sitting down with her legs out, and she was painting her toenails. Maybe that's the first thing that started my obsession with feet. Who knows? But she was painting her toenails. Loved it. She was adorable, gorgeous. Come home from school like the next day, and it's gone. I had it in my room. It's gone. Found out later, my mother threw it away. Didn't want me to have it. Thought it was inappropriate. So upset. It was a life-size cardboard cutout of Debbie freaking Gibson painting her toenails in short shorts. And my mom threw it away. And I had to streak for that thing. Anyway, we moved from California to Colorado because back in California, my father was a pastor. After going to Bible college, my father was a pastor in Kansas. When we moved to California, he ended up working at a bookstore for a little while and then eventually got a job at Focus on the Family. And Focus on the Family one day moved their headquarters from California to this nice little quaint city called Colorado Springs, where, the future, that's where the future was. Pretty soon Colorado Springs was going to be the big city, and it was going to be all great, but at the time it was a very small, little teeny tiny little city. Man, I've seen this city grow. And we said that's where it was at. So it kind of started the whole migration of people from California moving to Colorado, especially Colorado Springs. So because Focus moved, we moved. I remember going on vacation to find a house here. And on that vacation, seeing movies. They went to see Dick Tracy without me. I was very upset about that. I wanted to see Dick Tracy, and they went without me. Like my mom and my brothers went while I was hanging out with my dad. I do remember also during that vacation, my mother took me to our first ever double feature, which was we went and saw Back to the Future Part 3. And then as soon as we left the theater, she turned right around and went to the box office. And we're like, what are you doing? And she said, we're going to see another movie. And we saw Robin Hood Men in Tights. She regretted that one, but we didn't. It was great. Maybe that's where my obsession with hair over a bear bare-breasted chest came from. Anyway, so lots of memories of our vacation, looking for a house, and then we eventually moved here. I remember being devastated, leaving California and leaving one of my friends behind. And that friend was this where they were? I think California was where. No, because that was here. Might have been here. Might have been there. No, that was here. No, because that was the brick wall. There were these punk kids and bullies, and they put Cheese Whiz on my parents' car, which chipped the paint. One time my brother had to drink out of a fountain, and a slug came out and went in his mouth. There was a brick wall we used to climb. I don't know how we climbed a brick wall, but we did. So there were these neighbors that we were friends of, and then we weren't. And I had this one best friend, and I was devastated to leave to go to Colorado, and he left me this letter. And I remember this friend gave me because we always got ice cream when the ice cream man came around. So when we were moving, he said, "Here's $10 for some ice cream," and I used that $10 to buy a Michelangelo surfing Ninja Turtles action figure that I wanted really bad, but I felt so guilty. So like one of my first experiences with like utter guilt. Felt so guilty for buying a Michelangelo Ninja Turtles surfing action figure instead of ice cream, which is what he intended the money to be for. So I just felt so bad. My parents made me feel better. Like, it's okay. I just want you to be happy. It's your money. You do whatever you want with it. But I was like, man, he gave it to me for ice cream, and I didn't use it for ice cream. Shame on me. I remember one time in California, there was a shooting star, and I wished for money. Saw a shooting star, wished for money. Literally 2 minutes later, after I made that wish, the neighbor's dad came out and said, "Hey, will you do a chore for me real quick and I'll give you some money?" Yeah, I also remember there was a fire. There was a fire down the street once. I saw smoke and I wanted to see the fire. Maybe this started my whole pyromania thing. We'll get there. And I wanted to see this fire, but it was the whole kind of better to beg for forgiveness than ask for permission because I thought my parents would never. So I told my parents I was going to my friend's house. I'll be at my friend's house. Rode my bike, tried to get as close as I could to this. It was a house fire. Tried to get as close as I could to this house fire. I just wanted to get a close look at it. Couldn't get very close. Didn't get to see much. Had to head back. Next thing I know, everyone's looking for me, freaking out because I'm a missing child. Apparently, my parents went to my friend's house looking for me, and they're like, "We don't know what you're talking about. He's not here. We haven't heard from him today." So they were freaking out like I was missing or kidnapped or who knows what. And then they finally find me. I get busted and grounded for lying about it. But it turned out they were looking for me because they wanted to get the family together, put them in the car, and drive down to go check out the fire. So I never got to see the fire, and I was grounded, all because I lied to go see the fire that I didn't get to see, and ended up grounded for lying after they found out, only because they wanted to take me to see the fire. That's life. Anywho, random stories that I'm remembering about California. So we moved to Colorado, which is where I started third grade. I went to Martin Luther King Elementary. And, hey, it's Martin Luther King Day tomorrow. In Colorado Springs. Lots of memories there. My first kiss was in third grade. There was a new girl, new transfer, and she was like, I think she was like from Europe or something. She was all the rave, and I kind of liked her, and she kind of liked me. Next thing I know, she's chasing me down, because, you're young, you're shy, you're innocent, and, oh. And she chases me down to where the older kids, because this school had elementary through middle school. So she finally cornered me the tree where the middle schoolers would always make out. They called it the love tree. And she kisses me, and when it was over, I was just in shock and disgusted, and I went, "You stuck your tongue in my mouth." And she went, "Yeah. It's called a French kiss." So that was my first kiss, was third grade. I remember one time a friend of mine lost something in the grass, like a teeny tiny little like jewel or earring or something, and I found it real quick. And I was like, wow, I've got the best eyesight in the world, which I did. I had amazing eyesight until recent years. I got these like 2 years ago. So there was that. There was one day where I was bullied a lot, and I was so embarrassed about being bullied, I couldn't take it anymore, and I ran away from school. I was in walking distance. I used to walk to and fro school in third grade. So I was in walking distance, and I was being bullied so much that I just ran. This was during recess. I just ran away. I ran away from school, went straight home, cried to my mother. She had to call the school. Hey, just so you know, he took off, but he's here at home. Everything's cool. I think she made me go back that day. Yeah. Yeah. Ooh, there was another memory in California where I was left home alone for the first time. So that must have been 7 years old. Home alone for the first time, but it was only for a couple hours, and my mom had to go to school. She was working at a school at the time. She's like, I'll be back in just like an hour. But then, bam, 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 there was like somebody trying to get in my house, banging on the door, bang, bam, bam. I had to call 911. It was my first time calling 911. I called 911. Somebody's trying to get in my house. Oh my God. Police show up. Turns out it was my brother, who, according to him, if he bangs on the door and kicks it a certain way, it opens. Yeah, if you bang on any door and kick it a certain way, it'll open. Trust me, I learned that many years later. And he came to my rescue that day, actually. So that was a scary experience, but I did the right thing and called 911. But that was literally the first time I was ever left home alone. I was like 7. Anyway, so Colorado, I had 3rd grade, ran away from school one day. I remember they were doing a play for the Three Little Pigs and the Big Bad Wolf, and it was going to be in Spanish. This was 3rd grade. And that play was going to do a tour of all the schools in the city. It was a big deal. And the teachers said, look, we're going to do auditions. Everybody's going to want to be the Big Bad Wolf, so it's going to be an audition process. It's going to be very, tight-knit, like, good luck. They get this big deal about it, about how, you can't just, only one person's going to get to be the Big Bad Wolf, so all y'all calm down. And then as soon as this big conversation was over about this big play, the teachers say, Paul, can you come into the hallway, please? And they pull me aside, and they said, look, we want you to be the Big Bad Wolf. Because they knew I was the most outspoken, I was the most talented as far as acting and performing, I was the class clown. So they're like, don't tell anybody, we're going to audition, but we want it to be you. I still remember the first line of dialogue. Soy de lobo feroz. Had a great I loved performing that play. I loved the stage. That's when I got my first taste of being on stage and absolutely loved it. Man, I missed the stage so much. Ooh, another memory back in California. Sorry, I'm going to throw these out when they pop in my head because I'm trying to get as much of this on record as I can before I forget all these things. Or, God forbid, anything happens to me. We were at the Boys and Girls Club a lot when my parents were at work and couldn't afford babysitters. So we spent a lot of time at the Boys and Girls Club, and at one point they were going to do a talent show. And there was this girl, this older girl, like, I don't know, maybe 5 years older than me, who I had a very big crush on. And she asked me to play her boyfriend in a skit. And I was so embarrassed because I had such a big crush on her. I was like, no, I kind of want to, leave me alone. I still regret that to this day. I remember watching it and seeing this nice little skit they did where it was like they're just holding hands and then some like chainsaw master killer comes out and they scream and run away. That was about it. But I just remember thinking, man, that's supposed to be me holding her hand up there. And then during this big deal, because it was like a Christmas pageant, they were handing out giant coloring books, and everybody got this awesome giant coloring book of Santa and Christmas stuff. Except for when they ran out, and some kids had to get a different one. It was like some bug theme. There was worms and cartoony bugs. And this little kid came up to me and with his mom, and my son didn't get a Santa one, and he's devastated. Would you trade yours for his? And I was like, I did not want to whatsoever. I'm like, excuse you, this is my Santa coloring book. But for some reason, the kindness in me back then kicked in. This was my first memory of kindness. And I was like, okay. And I traded. And I regretted having this stupid bug one, but it was at least unique. I kind of appreciated it. But that was a time where I regretted doing the right thing. I was like, man, why did I give that kid my Santa deal? I should have kept it. So, yeah, there was that. Ooh, plus I remember the first time I stole a candy bar at the supermarket when I was very young. Mom, can I have this? No. Okay. And I would put my back, the little where they keep the candy right next to the checkout. So I just leaned up against it, slid it in my pocket, none the wiser. It was pretty slick, especially for like a 7-year-old. I believe I eventually felt guilty and told my mother about it and had to go back in the store and be like, I stole this. And they were like, whatever, kid. Who cares? And I was punished for that, but learned a lot about responsibility. Sorry, there's more random memory. Ooh, and one time I almost died when I was 7. and I was following my brothers as we were at a pool party. I couldn't swim. I never could swim very well. I only dog paddle, but I could never swim at all for most of my life. I was following them. They were following a tennis ball around the edge of the pool, and I was following them. And then I slipped, fell in the pool. I remember being underwater, and then someone pulled me out. Found out later that my guardian angel who pulled me out and saved my life that day from drowning was like a 15-year-old girl. And that might have been the same time, if not same occasion, where either before that or after. Anyway, probably must have been before. We probably went home after that. I walked to go to the bathroom, and some middle-aged lady didn't lock the door, and as a young child, saw some middle-aged lady on the toilet with her panties around her ankles. I went, oh, excuse me. That wasn't very fun. And then she came out, like, joking with her friends. Oh, that little 7-year-old came in the bathroom with me. So, yeah, there was that. Good stories from 3rd grade. 4th grade, we moved, so I went to a different school, High Plains Elementary. And, lots of memories there, but I'm afraid this video is too long, so I'm gonna have to probably make a part 2 before it cuts off and talk about 4th grade real quick, make that a quick one, maybe a couple of stories here and there. Actually, there's not much to talk about. I had a teacher named Mr. Worth. We called him Mr. Earth. He was all about the environment. One time he asked me to get him to fill up his cup full of water. And I filled it up with water and wanted to make sure it was cold, so I stuck my finger in it, and the kids saw me, were like, "Paul put his finger in your water." And I was the class clown, had a best friend in 4th grade, and then when 5th grade turned around after summer break, we just weren't best friends anymore. But back in 4th grade, I do believe was my first experience with... Again, I'm going to tell the stories before I forget them, and this is not for you, this is not for anyone to watch. Even maybe my friends, family, and loved ones don't want to know certain things, so I'll give you warnings like now. A lot of girls experience experimentation with their bodies when they're in college. It's very common for men to have those experiences at a younger age before puberty. For me, it was 4th grade. I would have sleepovers with my friend Will, and at first it started with us doing things with a teddy bear, and then it turned into us doing things under the bed to each other, mainly just fondling. A lot of fondling. It wasn't sexual, it was just curiosity. I remember one time I was dancing naked in the window while he was looking at me in the backyard, and next thing I know, my middle brother comes out in the backyard right in my peripheral, and I was like, ooh, I don't think he saw anything, but he was very curious as to what the heck we were doing. So I did have some early experimentation with my body and my best friend's body when we were very young in 4th grade, 9 years old. That's the only, I don't know if you could call that homosexual experience. Because again, it wasn't sexual, it was just kids being curious. I would fondle his penis, he would fondle mine. We were both 9. That was about it. We saw each other naked. The end. Next thing you know, what do you know? It's 5th grade. We hardly talked and weren't really friends anymore. There was another kid I had sleepovers with. We used to go to Blockbuster all the time and rent, one time we rented the original Captain America movie. The bad, old, cheesy one that was like a made-for-TV movie. And when I was at the sleepover, I remember one time he was peeing with the door open, and I was like, that's the most, like, his mom got upset. What are you doing? You have company. But I'm like, you don't mind when he does that when there's not company? Don't pee with the door open. Close the door when you're going to the bathroom. So that was a very, very core memory for me. I think that was most of the big 4th grade memories I can think of, because I think the other one was in 5th grade no, that was probably middle school, actually. So yeah, let's wrap this up for years 0 through 9, and next time it'll be the preteens and teenage years. How I'll make that video less than 25 minutes? Don't think I will. That's impossible. Boy, do I have stories that I need to cover. So that's going to be like 2, 3, 4, 5 parts. But that's my early, young, odd stories and experiences. So thanks for listening if you're still here. And if you are, I'm sorry about some of that.